Tales told in Granny T's fort. Roland and the paper birds. The blanket fort was peaceful tonight. Not the nothing happened kind of peaceful. The we're safe now kind. Peyton was already inside, smoothing the edge of her sleeping bag like she was organizing her thoughts. Jesse was lying on his side, quieter than usual, hands tucked under his pillow like they were taking a break. Oliver crawled in last and whispered, "Everybody good?" even though nobody asked him to. Roland slipped in without a sound. He always did. He moved like a thought you almost missed. He crawled into his sleeping bag, pulled the zipper up, and stared at the blanket ceiling. Granny T ducked inside and settled into her cozy chair with her lantern resting in her lap. She looked around at the 4 sleeping bags, the soft shadows, the warm stillness. Then she looked at Roland. Roland didn't look back. He blinked slowly, like his eyes were tired. Granny T waited. She never hurried quiet, kids. Finally, Roland whispered, barely louder than a breath, "I wanted to say something today." Peyton turned her head. "What?" Roland's throat moved, like he'd swallowed something too big. "I tried," he said. Jesse frowned. "Then why didn't you?" Roland's face warmed. He stared at his zipper. "It was there," he whispered, "in my head." Oliver's voice softened. "But it didn't come out?" Roland shook his head once. His voice cracked, tiny and honest. "It got stuck." The fort went quiet. Not uncomfortable quiet, understanding quiet. Granny T leaned forward just a little, eyes gentle. "If today felt too big," she said softly, "we'll make it smaller, one story at a time." Roland's shoulders dropped just a fraction. Granny T turned the lantern's knob. Click. Golden light bloomed inside it, slow and calm, like a sunrise that didn't need to hurry. And just like that, the story world woke up. The fort stretched wider. The air changed. It smelled like paper and rain and warm tea. The lantern glow spilled onto the floor, and the shadows shaped themselves into a soft path, safe, quiet, waiting. Granny T's voice became the story. "Tonight," she whispered, "I'm going to tell you about a boy whose words turned into paper birds." Roland blinked. "Birds?" Granny T nodded. "Little ones." The lantern pulsed once, and the story began. Roland and the paper birds. Once upon a time, in a town where the trees whispered kindly and the rooftops glowed like honey, there lived a boy named Roland. Roland was quiet. Not empty quiet. Not sad quiet. Roland was thoughtful quiet. He noticed things. He listened. He remembered. He carried words carefully, like they were glass. Roland had a special gift. Whenever he had something important to say, the words didn't just sit in his head. They folded themselves into tiny paper birds. Not regular paper birds, beautiful ones. Some were pale blue like morning. Some were white like soft clouds. Some were gold like lantern light. The birds lived inside Roland's chest, fluttering gently, waiting for their turn. And when Roland spoke, the birds would fly out. They'd glide into the world and land exactly where they were meant to. A kind word would land on someone's shoulder like comfort. A question would circle someone's head like curiosity. A brave sentence would soar straight and steady like a banner. Roland liked his paper birds. He liked knowing his words mattered. But there was one problem. Sometimes the birds wouldn't fly. Sometimes when Roland tried to speak, his throat turned into a locked door, and the birds inside him began to panic. One afternoon, Roland was at school. The classroom was loud. Not scary loud, just busy loud. Chairs scraping, kids talking, pencils tapping. The teacher asked everyone to share an idea for the class project. Hands shot up. Voices filled the room like bouncing balls. Roland had an idea too. A good one, a careful one, a helpful one. Inside Roland's chest, a paper bird unfolded itself. It was a pale green bird, neat and bright. It fluttered excitedly. Roland lifted his hand halfway. His heart thumped. The teacher looked around the room. Roland opened his mouth. The bird pushed forward, ready to fly. But then someone else shouted an answer. Louder, faster. The teacher nodded at them. Great idea, she said. Roland's hand lowered. The bird froze. Roland tried again. He raised his hand. The paper bird inside him trembled. Roland opened his mouth, but his throat locked. No sound came out. The bird flapped harder. Roland swallowed. His cheeks warmed. His stomach twisted. He could feel the bird pressing against the locked door of his throat like it was knocking. Let me out, let me out, let me out. Roland tried to force the words, but forcing made the door tighter. The teacher moved on. Roland's hand sank into his lap. The bird folded itself up again, small and disappointed. Roland stared at his desk. His idea stayed trapped inside him. After class, Roland walked outside. He didn't want to cry, but he felt that hot, prickly feeling behind his eyes anyway. He wasn't mad at anyone. He was mad at his throat, mad at his voice, mad that his words felt so big inside him and so tiny outside. Roland sat under a tree at the edge of the schoolyard and hugged his knees. He whispered, barely audible, "Why won't you work?" Inside his chest, the paper birds rustled. One unfolded, then another. Soon there were dozens, a whole flock, all fluttering anxiously, all bumping into each other. Roland's chest felt crowded, like he was full of trapped wind, like he might burst. And that's when he heard a soft sound beside him. Snip, snip, snip. Roland turned his head. Sitting on the grass was a creature he had never seen before. It was small and gentle looking, with round glasses and soft brown fur. It held a tiny pair of silver scissors, and in its lap was a sheet of paper. It was cutting carefully, folding slowly. A paper bird. The creature looked up at Roland. Its eyes were kind. "Hello," it said softly. Roland blinked. "Hi." The creature tilted its head. "I can hear your birds," it said. Roland's cheeks warmed. "You can?" The creature nodded. "They're flapping very loudly." Roland looked down. "I can't get them out," he whispered. The creature's expression softened. "Oh," it said gently, "your throat door is locked." Roland swallowed. "Yes." The creature folded the last wing of the paper bird and held it out. "This is a practice bird," it said. Roland stared. Practice? The creature nodded. Some birds are brave, it said. They fly easily. Roland's eyes stung. And some birds are shy, the creature continued. They need help. Roland whispered, I think all of mine are shy. The creature smiled kindly. Not shy, it corrected. Careful. Roland blinked. The creature's voice stayed soft. When you care about your words, it said, you want them to be perfect. Roland's throat tightened. He nodded. Perfect. That was the problem. Roland didn't want to say the wrong thing. He didn't want to sound silly. He didn't want people to look at him. So his throat locked to protect him. But it was protecting him too much. The creature set the practice bird on Roland's knee. Do you want to learn the bird keeper's rule? It asked. Roland whispered, There's a rule? The creature nodded. It held up one tiny finger. First, it said, you don't try to push the bird through a locked door. Roland frowned. Then what do I do? The creature held up a second finger. You open a smaller door, it said. Roland blinked. A smaller door? The creature nodded. It's called a starter sentence, it said. Roland's chest fluttered. A starter sentence? He repeated. The creature smiled. It's a tiny sentence, it explains, that tells your throat it's safe. Roland whispered, What sentence? The creature leaned in like it was sharing a secret spell. Can I try? Roland blinked. That was small. That was doable. The creature nodded. Not loud, it said. Not perfect. Just real. Roland swallowed. His practice bird trembled on his knee. Roland took a breath. Then he whispered, Can I try? The practice bird lifted its head. Its paper wings fluttered. The locked door in Roland's throat loosened a tiny bit. The creature smiled. Again, it said gently. Roland tried again, slightly louder. Can I try? The practice bird hopped off his knee and fluttered in the air just a few inches. Roland's eyes widened. The creature nodded proudly. Now, it said, you add one more sentence. Roland's chest tightened again. One more? The creature nodded. Just one, it promised. It whispered the next sentence. I have an idea. Roland swallowed. He looked at the practice bird. He took a breath. Then he said softly, I have an idea. The practice bird fluttered higher, circling Roland's head like a tiny moon. Roland stared. It was working. The creature's eyes softened. Your throat doesn't need a perfect sentence, it said gently. It needs a safe beginning. Roland's eyes stung. He nodded. But what if I mess up? He whispered. The creature shrugged kindly. Then you say the bravest sentence of all, it said. Roland blinked. What sentence? The creature smiled. Can I try again? Roland's chest loosened so suddenly it almost felt like laughing. That sentence felt like a soft landing, a do-over, a rescue net. Roland whispered it once, just to feel it. Can I try again? Inside Roland's chest, the paper birds calmed. They stopped flapping wildly. They settled, because now they knew They didn't have to be perfect. They just had to be free. The next day, the teacher asked another question. Roland had an answer. His heart thumped. The old fear rose. His throat door tightened. Roland's hand lifted halfway. He looked down at his desk. Then he whispered to himself, "Starter sentence." Roland raised his hand a little higher. The teacher looked around. Roland's mouth opened. His throat door trembled. Roland said, quietly but clearly, "Can I try?" The room didn't explode. Nobody laughed. The teacher smiled. "Of course, Roland." Roland's chest fluttered. He added the next sentence, "I have an idea." And then, like a flock finally released, his paper birds flew, not as a loud storm, as a gentle, steady breeze. Roland's idea landed in the room, and people listened. The lantern glow softened. The bird keeper faded. The practice bird disappeared into warm shadow. And suddenly, the fort was just the fort again. Blankets overhead, sleeping bags below, Granny T in her cozy chair. Roland blinked slowly. His hands rested on his sleeping bag, open, calm. Granny T watched him with soft eyes. Roland swallowed. Then he whispered very carefully, like he was holding a paper bird in his mouth, "Can I try?" Everyone looked at him immediately, not because he was loud, because he spoke. Peyton nodded fast. "Yes." Oliver smiled. "Always." Jessie blinked, surprised, then said, softer than usual, "Yeah, go ahead." Roland's cheeks warmed. He hesitated. Then he added, "I have an idea." Granny T smiled, like the lantern had done exactly what it was meant to do. "That's a beautiful beginning," she said softly. Roland's mouth curved into the smallest smile. Not big, but real. And in the fort, that was enough. The fort was quiet again, blankets above, sleeping bags below, and the soft sound of everyone breathing a little slower. Granny T turned the lantern down low until it looked like a tiny golden star. She reached out and gave the closest sleeping bag a gentle pat. "Good," she murmured. "That's better." Then, in her softest voice, "Close your eyes, my loves. You're safe. You're loved. You're home."